I'd say the biggest things are building that trust, and the only way you can get the foot in the door with building the long-term trust with someone is to is for them to feel like you are genuinely listening to them and genuinely caring about them.
Hmm.
The only way to do that is to genuinely do it. And for that, it comes to asking the right questions, diving deep into some of their responses, and finding the deeper emotional meanings behind what they're looking for, which is oftentimes it's not wanting to worry about money and caring about family or travel and retirement or something. So you need to dig beyond the surface of just, hey, I want my money to last this long. It's what does that actually mean to you? You just have to have the mindset that you're going to get a lot of no's. And
Yeah.
actually, I knocked on the door one time of a retired financial advisor. So he
Oh,
was all
okay.
excited to talk to me. And that was kind of funny. And he said, look, just every time you get a no, just see that as one step closer to the next yes that someone might be willing to meet.
Mhm. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Your Lab Central. Today, I have with me Nick. So, Nick, would you like to tell our audience why they should be excited about this conversation today?
Yeah, for sure. So, and before I even get started, I got to give a quick compliance disclosure. None of this should be taken as financial advice. Everyone has different situations. But now to go into why people might want to listen to me, what I want to say is that I'm a wealth manager based in Fairfax, Virginia, and we are a relationship driven family office. So, what that means is when clients work with us on the financial advisory side, they always talk to the same trusted advisors for our
Hmm.
business. That's my father and me. People aren't passed from one junior advisor to the next. They're only talking and working with us, only one person to call, and we build that long-term trust and that relationship with our clients. So, whether it's helping with estate planning or tax strategies or long-term care insurance planning, and managing the investments as well. We build a long-term relationship with our clients and dig under the surface of their sort of service level goals, such as like, oh, I want to have enough money to make it through retirement and be able to retire.
Yeah.
And we want to figure out what's the deeper meaning behind that. And for a lot of people, what it really comes down to is not wanting to worry about money
Yeah.
and being able to live the life that they want, whether it's visiting their kids and traveling, retirement, or anything like that.
Hmm.
But people have enough worries in life, and we want to be able to take
Yeah.
that worry off their plate.
So, since you're a second generation entrepreneur and a financial advisor, the first thing that's coming to mind from the financial advisory perspective is um, while talking to your father, how have financial habits changed from when he was working with his clients and probably now that you have started or you've been working for a while now? Any huge differences that you're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely when I first came in, I came from consulting previously, so a lot of the work in consulting is to look at a current company's systems and processes and, you know, stress test it and question it and
Yeah,
see what could be done more efficiently. So
right.
I came in and tried to be, the big new consultant coming into the firm and trying to question like a lot of the things he had been doing.
Yeah.
And maybe we made a couple tweaks to drive a little more efficiencies and be more
Mhm.
productive on a couple areas. But for the most part, he's got a pretty good process. I was quite impressed. I questioned some of the stuff like that he used, but now that I've been working and tried out a couple different things,
Mhm.
his technology stack, his systems, his processes are all pretty good. But say the biggest thing is trying to set up like actual processes. He had kind of been running things more one off. He built such great relationships with his clients over the years. He's
Mhm.
worked with some of them for over 20 years. And so it's like they're friends at this point and they talk just whenever. And
Mhm.
that's kind of how he's been operating a lot of the years. But now I'm trying to get a more strict cadence, like make sure we're checking in for annual meetings consistently and tracking everything, checking up on reviewing investments very frequently, reviewing possible opportunities for other needs that could arise for some of these clients.
So, so again, have the expectations of clients changed over the years, or Is it still the same? Is everybody still working to save up for their retirement, or is it like now they have different goals these days over the years?
Uh, that's a good question. I'd say the goals are pretty similar for a lot of people. It's build up for retirement, and then once they get to retirement, make sure that money will last the whole
Yeah.
time. And I'd say one newer trend that I'm seeing more frequently now, though, is some younger people, so say in their 40s or late 30s. A lot of people have heard of this movement. I think it's called FIRE, is the acronym Financial Independence Retire Early,
Yeah.
FIRE. And I think we're seeing more of that because it is quite achievable. If you are investing in a good diversified way and putting away a lot of money over the years preemptively, you can get to that point. And that's one thing that I'm seeing a little more frequently. Back in the older days, I might say, a lot of people got pensions from their company. And how it worked is you just worked for one company or one employer for, 30 years or so, and you have to work until age 65 or something. And then once you hit that age, then you're good to retire, and then you get a pension that will cover you the rest of your life. You didn't have to do as much planning and investing on your own, whereas now that's really rare. Maybe some, government or city employees are getting good pensions like that, but
Mhm.
for the most part, people are bouncing around different jobs, getting different 401ks. So it creates much more responsibility on the individual to
Mhm.
be able to make that step into retirement.
So on the relationship perspective that you mentioned, right, creating long-term relationships. Now, obviously, generic financial advisory firms have one junior advisor to the other. How have these long-term relationships played out, especially for you, right? Having such a long-term relationship with one specific client. How is it working out?
Yeah, well, for me, since I've only been in the business now for about a year and a half, I guess I don't have a full long-term relationship yet.
Yeah.
However, I'm really seeing it with my father's current client base, the
Mhm.
ones that have been with him for many, many years. Growing up as a kid, I used to just see these people at our annual parties and just figure they were friends of my parents. I had no idea they were actually working together.
Mhm.
But so I've seen it a lot on his end, and now I'm I'm working to build that as quickly as possible because in our business in wealth management, where part of the job is someone needs to trust you enough to be willing to give you pretty much their entire life savings to
Yeah.
manage and invest for them. So you got to really trust someone to want to do that. And it can be difficult when, for example, myself, like bringing on a new client and, we meet with them, they know they want to work with an advisor and they decide to work with us. It's interesting to see how that trust develops. And I'm in the working period of that right now as I'm bringing on new clients. And part of the goal is to get that long-term trust, but I'm working to try to build that as quickly as possible.
Mhm.
And to me, it seems like the best way to make that happen is just being consistent and doing what I say I'm going to do. If we're
Yeah.
going to get something done and schedule a meeting to do a Roth conversion or make a decision on the pension or something like that, just being on top of things. And each time that I deliver something that I say I'm going to do, then that helps build another brick of trust layers. So that's the way I'm working on it to try to get to that long-term trust period while I've only been in the business for about a year and a half now.
Okay. So from a starter's perspective, I want to ask you, okay. I mean, you're not exactly a starter. You've been in consulting and now you're in the financial advisory. So if you had to give advice to young financial advisors out there starting out, right? Trying to create a new client or create a relationship. Okay. From the past work that you've been doing, what are the things that you are currently pitching to them? Are you pitching returns, relationships, trust? What are the things that you're talking about when you're first talking to a client?
Yeah, so returns are definitely not like those are obviously important,
Mhm.
but that's not something that I'm trying to focus on right away. Obviously, I'm working and investing in a way that,
Yeah.
you know, I'm following white paper research and trying to do the best I can to get
Mhm.
those higher returns in the long run.
Yeah.
However, that's something that I want to tread lightly on,
Mm-hmm.
kind of pitching, because if you're in an up year and returns are great, then that's good and they can be
Yeah.
happy. However, if you get into a down year, which those happen, and portfolios are going to go down, the market goes down, then if you've been pitching someone on just you're going to get great returns, what's the point of them staying working with you when you're in a down year? So I don't think that would be prudent for a younger advisor to try to
Mm-hmm.
sell someone on I'm going to get great returns. It's also quite close to impossible to be able to beat the market year after year. There's tons of studies that have shown that. So um, I'd say the biggest things are building that trust, and the only way you can get the foot in the door with building the long-term trust with someone is to is for them to feel like you are genuinely listening to them and genuinely caring about them.
Mm-hmm.
The only way to do that is to genuinely do it. And for that, it comes to asking the right questions, diving deep into some of their responses, and finding the deeper emotional meanings behind what they're looking for, which is oftentimes it's not wanting to worry about money and caring about family or travel and retirement or something. So you need to dig beyond the surface of just, hey, I want my money to last this long. It's what does that actually mean to you? So building that long-term trust comes with genuinely caring and listening to their goals and their fears and figuring out a way together to set yourself up for success for that.
Okay. Now, you mentioned about FIRE, right? Just a short while ago. So, from your perspective, how have if somebody just wanted to do the basics about FIRE, okay. Now, where should they start with? What are the numbers? What can they do?
So it's interesting. There's a lot of aspects that come into play.
Yeah.
Obviously, number one is you need to aggressively save
Hmm.
and get those dollars invested and working for you. So you
Uh-huh.
can't just be putting it into a savings account and getting, high yield savings returns, which are just keeping up with inflation. You
That's right.
need to get that into the market so it's growing at a, lifetime compounding rate of 8 to 12% or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next thing that's often overlooked and a lot of people aren't aware of is that you need to build out multiple different buckets of money on a
Uh-huh.
tax diversification level. So by that I mean we have our 401k, which is retirement accounts, and then you've got IRAs between the two of them as well, you have the Roth version and the pre-tax traditional.
Okay.
So the Roth is after tax dollars. It goes in there, and then you can take it out tax free in retirement.
Mm-hmm.
And then the traditional IRA or traditional 401k, you're lowering your income that year, putting in pre tax dollars. And then when you take it out, it comes with taxes paid as income tax.
Okay.
So, but either of those, you can't touch that money for the most part. There's some exclusions, but you can't touch it until you're 59 and a half. So on the FIRE side of things, if you want to retire early, say by age 55 or 50, you've got to build up another bucket of money that you can actually pull from to live off of
Mm-hmm.
once you want to retire. And it's not going to be in those two buckets. So you need to build out that other, just a normal, like taxable brokerage account. So like an
Mm-hmm.
E-Trade or Schwab or Robinhood or something. You need to build that up as well. And it's not just build up only one of these buckets. You need to build up all three. That brokerage taxable account will be the one that you can lean on in those early years of retiring early. But after that, once you are over 59 and a half, if you've got a good chunk of money in each of those three buckets, then that gives you the flexibility each year in deciding from which buckets you want to pull
Mm-hmm.
and you do that in a tax optimization way. So you can, if you've got a good chunk in each one, now you can be more strategic and decide, I'm going to pull how much from each one so that you can have more flexibility in deciding how much you want to be giving the government each year. So that's a big thing is building out those three buckets. There's a couple other buckets as well. Like you could say life insurance, like a whole life policy, could be a separate bucket because it's also taxed in a different way.
Yeah.
Um, but that's a big thing that's overlooked is you need to be building out different buckets of money that are all diverse, like taxed in different ways.
Right. Okay. Now let's talk a little about business, right? Now, in this high intensity relationship building process, okay, getting new clients, okay, is one thing that needs to be done as aggressively because you can't just be dependent on the existing ones for growth personally, right? So, what are the practices that you have? I'm not very much aware about financial advisory firms, how they go about marketing and sales. So, if you can just enlighten.
Yeah, so what's the typical way for us, and I'd say for most firms, is just for getting new clients is through referrals from current clients.
Hmm.
That's obviously a great way, but that list can be exhausted. People only have so many friends.
Yeah.
And then the next way is your current network of your family and friends
Okay.
and old connections and everything like that.
Hmm.
So I've leaned on that as well. So that's been one of my main starting points is reaching
Hmm.
out to my network, and that's been great. And after that, I've tried lots of different things and I'm still working on it because I remember my father once told me that he was in a presentation where this big high producing advisor was giving a lecture to a bunch of advisors, and he asked a bunch of them, tell me some marketing strategies you're doing. And he was up on the whiteboard and writing down like mailers, seminars, like hosting events and calling people, referrals, all these different things. And then the big high producer advisor was wrote down a giant list of all these different marketing avenues, and then he said, "I'm doing all of these."
Okay.
So what I'm saying is, and what I'm learning is that you can find a good avenue that will help build your business and get you new clients, but in the meantime, you need to kind of just throw darts at the wall and see what sticks. So I'm trying lots of different avenues, such as building out my website and about to launch my own podcast and
Okay.
more long form YouTube channel and posting on social media frequently. I've done door to door in residential neighborhoods, logged a lot of
Right.
hours doing that,
Yeah.
and also done some small business door to door, going into office buildings and
Hmm.
just trying to talk to the owner. So I'm trying lots of different avenues, and now I'm actually working on logging my hours on each one just to actually get a good KPI, good metric to see, all
Hmm.
right, what are some of the most effective avenues? And it can be really difficult because it's hard to see like figure out what works. You need to try many different things and try
Right.
them a lot and take them
That's right.
pretty far in
Mhm.
order to see if it actually pays off. But those are some of the avenues I've been trying.
All right. So you talked about two very contrasting things. One is door to door, and then one is social media. Okay. Now, but they both have two very different stories to tell. So on the door to door front, how's your experience been? Are people willing to listen to a financial advisor who's just knocking on their door, or a small business owner who sees a person walking in through their door, and then how is it like?
Yeah, I mean, it's people are aware of how that like a lot of people are probably aware of how that works. Like people have had people knock on their doors
Yeah, for a long
or
time.
cold call them on a phone,
Yeah,
and it can be pretty annoying for for the receiver of that.
yeah,
And so when I've done it a lot, you just have to have the mindset that you're going to get a lot of no's. And
yeah.
actually, I knocked on the door one time of a retired financial advisor. So he
Oh,
was all
okay.
excited to talk to me. And that was kind of funny. And he said, look, just every time you get a no, just see that as one step closer to the next yes that someone might be willing to meet.
Mhm.
So I kind of like I think most of it just comes down to mindset. I got past the point of caring that someone's going to slam the door on you and be like, "Go away, this is annoying,"
Mhm.
um, and just kind of laugh it off while I'm doing it. And I found at the business door to door, people are in their workplace, so
Yes.
they're trying to set a good example maybe for their employees and stuff. So they're always quite
Courteous
kind
and
and open to
yeah.
talking briefly.
Mhm.
But for both of them, you're gonna get a lot of no's, and it's just keep trekking, keep like walking to the next house or walking to the next office
Yeah.
and making it through.
Mhm. Now, let's get to social media. You mentioned that you're posting a lot on social media. So, You also mentioned that you're either writing white papers or reading through white papers, right? As you mentioned for research and all. So, what type of content are you putting out on social media, and are there any specific platforms that you're targeting because of your customer type?
Yeah, so my current platforms I'm doing are just LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook.
Okay.
Um, my target clients are typically people age 50 to 65 that have at least $1 million in investable assets. Um, so, I don't think too many of them are going to be on TikTok or Instagram,
Yeah.
but maybe I could explore those avenues as well. But, a lot of I just knowing my dad, he uses Facebook and he loves his YouTube Premium. So I think those can be some good avenues. But for the content I'm doing, I'm kind of mixing it up. Some of it is just posting short form video clips of myself talking about some of the stuff we do in our business and how we work with our clients, and then also posting some blogs that I've written and some visual graphics I've made for how like a detailed, complicated financial idea or product, how it kind of works, like breaking it down. So
No.
that made a couple fun graphics on like a living trust for estate planning or a
Yeah.
529 plan, like whether you can convert it to a Roth IRA. Um, and then on the white paper research side, so that's more so for our investment philosophy and how
Yeah.
we like to invest. So we like I've done a lot of the research back when I was in college, but then also continued since I've been here. And when I go to conferences, we are constantly learning about investment philosophy and what's driving returns, what are the shifts globally on a macro level of the different asset
Yeah.
classes, how they're moving. And yeah, so that's the big driver of our investment philosophy is research and going to events and hearing different ideas on what could be the good strategies to be implementing with our clients.
Okay, now since okay, this is a little diversion, but just want to ask your personal opinion. Since macro level visibility came up, I want to know what are your opinions on Trump's economic practices across the globe and how.
Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, the first thing is that one thing that markets don't like in terms of like volatility and stock
Yeah,
prices going down or
yeah,
so is uncertainty.
that's right.
And, the current administration, there's been quite a bit of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, like there's going to be huge tariffs. Well, we'll
Yeah,
wait a little bit. Then Canada, you're getting hit with tariff. Actually, we'll wait a little bit. So there's been a lot of back and forth on that,
yeah,
and markets don't really like uncertainty. So you saw back in the springtime of 2025 a huge market drop, and now it's since come back. But yeah, the uncertainty is a big aspect. However,
that's right.
uncertainty and that can create for good opportunities. Say, for example, back in the spring with the markets dropping from the tariffs, not to say that if a bunch of tariffs would have gone into place, that it would affect markets and hurt them because
Yeah.
lower amount of trade. But like when you just look at the grand scheme of the entire market, when you stretch out the timeline long enough to
Yeah,
50, 60, 70, 100 years,
it
all these little
fluctuates, right?
drops from uncertainty are just the tiniest little blips along the
Yes.
way. And
Yeah.
it just goes one direction, upward and to the right. So when you can keep that long-term focus, that will allow you to cut through the noise of,
Mhm.
oh, this time is different. There's a new
Yeah.
war, there's new tariffs. So many people always say this time is different, the markets are being destroyed. They come back. That's just what happens. And when you can keep that long-term perspective, that'll really help you have some more peace of mind. But
Mhm.
otherwise, one big shift that we're seeing right now is that international markets have been massively outperforming the US just this year. And historically, if you look at like the last 50 years or so,
Mhm.
typically on an international versus US like stock market returns,
Yeah.
they kind of go back and forth,
Yeah.
not necessarily in trends, but it's one is usually outperforming the other.
Mhm.
And the US has been outperforming international for about the last 15 years.
Okay.
So right now we're seeing it to that it's kind of coming back, and international has been doing quite well. So it's important to make sure you don't just have all your eggs in one basket and only being invested in US or only international. It's good to
Okay.
make sure you've got some skin in the game on both so that you can not be missing out on some good returns.
All right. So, Nick, before I close, any financial advice from your own wallet?
From my own wallet, as in like for what I do for myself.
Yeah, if you're
Um,
allowed to share something like that.
yeah. I'd say one thing I guess it's two-part thing.
Hmm.
So when it comes to like for myself, I'm younger and I'm trying to build wealth for
Yeah.
myself to be able to retire and leave a legacy for my kids one day that I'll eventually have. Not yet, but one thing I like to practice is when you're younger, try to like you have the maximums you can contribute to a 401k or a Roth IRA. And so, 23,500 for a 401k and 7,000 for a Roth IRA, for example. Try to max those out as early in the year as you can.
Hmm.
So that 7,000 for the Roth, instead of waiting till the next year, April, to contribute to it, because that's the end of the timeline, try
Yeah.
to knock that out in the first 3 months or 6 months of the year. Because in the grand scheme of things, maybe you would put it in at a time when the market's at all-time highs and then it drops.
Yeah.
That's bad luck. That sucks. But in the grand scheme of things, the market is usually going up. And when you look at the longer timeline,
Hmm.
the best time to invest is usually yesterday. So
Right.
it's more about time in the market rather than trying to time the market. So the one little small takeaway that I think is a great action item for younger people is try to max out your 401k or your Roth IRA right away as early as you can in the year. And that just allows you more time for your money to be working for you, growing and reinvesting those dividends and building up more and more over the long run.
All right. Thank you so much, Nick. This was a very interesting conversation. I don't usually have a lot of financial advisors coming in, so this was a great way to refresh the whole guest list. So thank you so much for joining in, and I'm sure the audience also liked it. So before we close, where can people get in touch with you?
People can get in touch on our website, which is grossewealthmanagement.com. That's Grose. And on our website or my LinkedIn is just Nick Gross. And same with our YouTube channel is Nick Gross dash GWM for Gross Wealth Management. But thank you very much for having me. It's been a great time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Nick. Now, for the audience who's been watching and listening intently, don't forget to like if you liked what we talked about, and then the comment section is always open for questions, perspectives, suggestions, or anything you want to add to the conversation. And don't forget to subscribe before you close the window itself. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much, Nick.